Sad news to report here. The world mourning the loss of martial arts legend Chuck Norris.
Today, America lost more than an action star. Chuck Norris is dead. And what makes this hit even harder is that the man who looked immortal to generations of fans was gone almost as suddenly as the news broke. A medical emergency in Hawaii. A family statement. No official cause released. And behind that silence is a bigger story. How a shy boy became a myth, how that myth outlived the man, and why Chuck Norris's death feels like the burial of an entire American era. Because by the end of this video, we're not just talking about how Chuck Norris died, we're talking about what died with him. Part 1. Before the beard, before the boots, before the roundhouse kick became folklore, Chuck Norris was Carlos Ray Norris, a quiet boy from Ryan, Oklahoma, born in 1940, raised in poverty, carrying the kind of silence that usually never becomes legend. Reuters reports that he later traced that shyness to his father's alcoholism and to the instability of a home that never felt strong enough to hide inside. He was not the kid people feared. He was the kid people overlooked. That matters because the Chuck Norris the world came to know was built in direct opposition to the boy he started as. He was shy in school. He was not a natural athlete. He had to train for what other men seemed born with. There was no prophecy around him, no sense that greatness was waiting in the wings. Just a young man trying to become harder than the life that shaped him. Then came the turning point. In 1958, he joined the U.S. Air Force and went to South Korea. That is where martial arts entered his life, and more importantly, where discipline did. Korea did not just teach him how to fight. It gave him form. It gave him identity. It gave structure to a man who had grown up in emotional instability. That is also where he picked up the name Chuck, the name that would eventually become larger than the man himself. When he came back to California, he did not return as a movie star in waiting. He came back as a worker, a teacher, a grinder. He opened karate schools. He trained relentlessly. He fought in tournaments. And over time, the quiet kid from Oklahoma became a 6-time undefeated world professional middleweight karate champion. Steve McQueen, one of his students, reportedly pushed him toward acting. That one connection changed his life. But make no mistake, the seed of Chuck Norris was not planted in Hollywood. It was forged in humiliation, discipline, and repetition. And that is the first truth people forget. He did not begin as a myth. He began as a man trying to outrun weakness. Part 2. Hollywood did not invent Chuck Norris. It recognized something that was already there. His first major jolt of screen immortality came through Bruce Lee. Their showdown in The Way of the Dragon turned Norris into a global presence, because suddenly, audiences were not just watching a fight. They were watching the birth of a screen archetype. After that came the run that locked him into American pop culture. Good Guys Wear Black, Missing in Action, Code of Silence, The Delta Force. Men like him did not wink at the audience. They did not apologize. They walked into chaos and acted like order still meant something. That was the real Chuck Norris fantasy, not just strength, moral certainty. He became the face of an era that wanted its heroes hard, simple, and clean. In his films, evil was visible. Justice was physical. The good guy won in the end, and for millions of people, especially in the 1980s and 1990s, that felt reassuring in a world getting more cynical by the year. Then television made him permanent. From 1993 to 2001, Walker, Texas Ranger, turned him from action star into cultural furniture. He was no longer just a movie tough guy. He was a weekly ritual, a father-safe warrior, a lawman with fists, faith, and moral clarity. Families watched him together. Kids imitated him. Adults trusted him. Chuck Norris stopped feeling like a celebrity and started feeling like a fixed American symbol. And then came the strangest second life of all. The internet turned him into folklore. The Chuck Norris facts era in 2005 made him more than famous. It made him superhuman in the public imagination. The joke worked because it rested on something real. People already saw him as larger than pain, larger than age, larger than ordinary rules. That is what fame had done. It took a disciplined man and turned him into an American exaggeration, a folk hero, a meme, a myth. But that kind of fame has a cost. When the whole world sees you as invincible, it stops imagining you as fragile. And that is where this story starts to hurt. Part 3. The most brutal part of Chuck Norris's death is not just that it happened, it is when it happened, and how violently it clashes with the image he left behind. On March 10th, just over a week before his death, Chuck Norris celebrated his 86th birthday by posting a video of himself training, kickboxing, moving, smiling, performing the exact thing the world always wanted from him, proof that he still had it. His caption was 6 words long: "I don't age, I level up." And now those words land like a ghost, not because they were false, but because they were so painfully human. A man still choosing defiance, still choosing discipline, still trying to tell the world that age had not taken him yet. Then, almost immediately, the image shattered. According to current reporting, Norris was hospitalized in Hawaii after a sudden medical emergency. By Friday, March 20th, his family announced that he had died the day before. They said he was surrounded by family and at peace. They called it a sudden passing. They thanked the public for the love, and then they drew a line. No official cause, no public breakdown, no explanation beyond grief. And that is where this video gets uncomfortable, because the internet always wants one more thing, one more detail, one more diagnosis, one more real story. But the harsh truth here is that the real story may be the silence itself. America spent decades turning Chuck Norris into a machine. His family is now insisting that he be allowed to leave as a human being. Privacy, in this case, is not a dodge. It is a final defense against spectacle. So, what really caused Chuck Norris's death? As of today, the honest answer is this: the official cause has not been publicly released, and anything more confident than that would be fiction. That may frustrate people. It may even disappoint the audience trained by modern celebrity culture to expect a dramatic reveal. But sometimes the cruelest answer is the simplest one. Even legends die inside private rooms. Even icons leave questions behind. Even the men who once looked bulletproof on screen do not get to negotiate with time forever. And maybe that is why this death feels so much bigger than one obituary. Chuck Norris represented a type of American action hero that is almost extinct now. Flesh and blood toughness, minimal irony, moral conviction, discipline without apology, no cape, no digital armor, no cinematic universe, just a man, a stance, and the promise that evil could still be hit hard enough to retreat. Reuters and AP both frame his passing as the loss of one of the last great old-school tough guy stars, the kind who made audiences believe that character and force could still live in the same body. That is why the tributes poured in so fast. Stallone, Van Damme, Dolph Lundgren, Texas leaders, friends, fans. Not just because a celebrity died, but because a piece of cultural memory broke loose. People were not only mourning Chuck Norris, they were mourning the era he carried on his back, an era of straight-faced heroism, of men who did not smirk their way through danger, of action stars who felt physical, not manufactured. And yet the final twist is that the family did not speak about a warrior. They spoke about a husband, a father, a grandfather, the heart of the family. That is how the myth ends, not in explosion, not in scandal, not in some tabloid revelation, but in a private grief that reminds us who he really was underneath the folklore. So yes, Chuck Norris is dead, but the deeper loss is harder to name. What died with him was a certain American belief that strength could still be simple, that heroes could still be literal, that a man could stand in the center of chaos and mean exactly what he looked like he meant. Chuck Norris spent a lifetime being treated like he was bigger than death. And in the end, the reason his passing hurts this much is not that the myth finally fell. It is that for one last moment, the world was forced to see the man underneath it.